And we're back. Adir just abusing my fashion sense.
I'm not abusing it. I was just impressed.
It was light abuse.
You were wearing this shirt that is impossible to iron. Can't iron that shirt.
I'm not one big on ironing, you'd be shocked to know.
That's linen-like. Although when you go to the races, you get some like very fancy person to tailor you up and stuff.
That was a fashion festival. My good friend Christian Kim, my friend of the pod, who was just at Fashion Week in Sydney, actually did a great show.
Is he the guy that just opened a store in Sydney?
He just opened a store in Sydney. So our Sydney listeners, I strongly recommend, check out Christian's stuff. He's king of Melbourne fashion. So now up in Sydney. I think you should go to him actually, Adir.
Thank you. I don't really know how to take that.
And speaking of people who maybe don't need fashion advice, we've got an extremely special guest on the pod sitting on my left. So did we tease this announcement a little while ago? I think we may have just...
I think what we said is this year, but like I usually will say things like some big things are happening, and I'm not sure if people believe it. But we said this year some big things are happening with the pod.
You're Babe Ruth-like and you're calling a shot.
It turns out I was telling the truth.
This time.
Big things are happening.
So we are thrilled that Will Hayward, who's been a good friend of mine for many years, is coming on as co-founder and CEO of the Contrarians Co. So we're finally becoming a real thing, Adir, after 207 episodes.
I know that's worrying because when I roll in here, 20 minutes late, relaxed, I'm like, we're just chatting.
Now someone can turn you off, tell you
podcast. Now we have to be serious about this thing.
Well, Adam phoned me a few months ago and said, look, we've got this pod thing going on, and I wasn't quite so sure about it. He said, look, I guarantee you Adir will share his workout plan if you and it's not eventuated yet. But
I see your biceps already gotten bigger.
Oh, well,
you're a black belt in something, so you probably don't need Adir's bicep regime. But
so we can say something that is true now, because that is not true.
Well, the black belt's true. The bicep was questioned.
My workout plan is Kiza, who we're never going to talk about again until they pay us. No, I have to talk about them.
I saw Brett last week, actually.
They've been so good. So this is true. I said to you, it feels like this pod is reaching like quite a large number of people, but I feel like it could be something much bigger. And we should get, I literally said this year, we should get the best person in media to come and build this out as a media business.
This was about 6 months ago, I think.
And you were, as usual, we have this dynamic, which people maybe don't realise, which is I'm overly ambitious too early. and I'm like, we can do it. And it takes you a while to be like, like brushing me off. And then I wake up one day, literally, 3 or 4 months later, and it's like, oh yeah, there's this amazing guy, you know him, I think we're going to get him to be the CEO. I'm like, well, how did that happen? Well, what were you doing in that 3 months? I thought you were just brushing me off.
Away.
And my mind was blown that you were talking about Will.
I've known Will for probably 6 years now. So we worked at Private Media together. You basically saved Private Media from almost certain death, for better or worse. But this is obviously Crikey Private Media and Crikey Smart Company and the Mandarin. And before that, you were at BuzzFeed in the UK. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and how we're able to snare you?
Sure. So as you might be able to guess by my accent and sort of sharp tailoring. I'm a Brit originally, so I moved to Australia 8 years ago. At that point, with 2 beautiful English sons. I now have 3 awful Australian sons with mullets and every name ends with O or Y or whatever.
Who are better at almost every sport as a result of moving to Australia.
Significantly better.
Your lovely wife's Australian, which I think is why you moved.
Yeah, so we moved there. So Liz got a job at Google. We had a very happy life.
It's a power couple, you two.
We'll see.
Well, you are now.
And we wanted the life that Australia offers, and we've been here for 8 years. We think it's a fantastic country to live in. Like every country, it has things that could be better, and you two have done a great job of talking about some of those things. But we're very, very happy here. As Adam said, my career has largely been in media. So I worked at the Wall Street Journal for a number of years. I worked at The Economist for a number of years. I was the first hire for BuzzFeed outside of the States, so we built that into a pretty meaningful thing, even though now it's not doing so well.
It is a logical trajectory. I just want to point this out. Wall Street Journal, Economist, Contrarians. That is the natural trajectory of life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think...
I'm teasing you, but you should explain what you think about the future of media, which I think is very fascinating.
So I think narratives in business are often a little bit oversold, and everyone says that we're entering the era of this or the era of that. And so I want to be a little bit cautious about saying definitively everything has changed. Actually, normally things don't change that much. But in media, we often see these big platform shifts, and as a result, some businesses really capitalize on those and reach colossal scale. And so to me, it seems very apparent, particularly outside of Australia, what the future of media looks like. So obviously we've heard Adam and Adir talk a lot about the Acquired podcast, sometimes talking about Prof G Media. There's some sports podcasts out there as well.
It's got Vox, who James Murdoch just bought, Pivot, and a bunch of other great podcasts.
And they do have some common characteristics, and that is that if we would set up a media company today, the central unit would not be a website and a masthead. No one's going out and setting up a thing and saying, look, this is the new version of the New York Times.
Except, what was the one that...
Capital Brief.
And Free Press, is that what it's called in the US?
Free Press is really built on the brand of the founder.
That's true. No, you're absolutely right. I kind of inadvertently reinforced your point there.
And I think some other trends worth paying attention to within the Free Press, which is very much a sort of reaction to a period of pretty consistent progressivism within the media. And so, I mean, I'll let others pontificate about that. But yeah, as I said, the central unit would be a pod. The Prof G team talk a lot about how pods are really kind of just raw material for clips that go on and reach hundreds of thousands of people. And so what does a great pod look like? Well, I would say it requires two people who are definitely insiders. So what we want people is sort of someone that the audience can come to and hear things that they wouldn't necessarily get elsewhere.
Which is different to traditional media, which is built around journalists who, by definition, pride themselves on being outsiders.
100%. So, again, I do not think that's going away. I do not think that the age of journalism is over, but I do think that when people come to a pod, what they want to hear is things that they wouldn't be able to hear elsewhere. And I think there's a supplementary value. So if the value of journalism is finding stuff that other people don't know about, there's a supplementary value of informed conversation that helps you understand those facts. And I think that's what we commonly see from the great pods. I think the hosts need to be opinionated, which obviously is pretty tough for Adam, but we're doing our best to kind of encourage them.
He does a certain kind of training every week just to be a bit more extroverted, coming out of his shell slowly but surely.
Give him a couple of coffees.
Doesn't drink coffee.
Imagine what it would be like.
Anyway, imagine what it would be like.
Sitting here.
Yeah, imagine what you would be like with anything. Like I don't know, diet of water and air, and like this is what you like.
Never had a great need for cocaine, so that's for sure. Imagine how fast I talk.
So yeah, we need informed insiders. We need sort of people who are very prepared to share what they think, and I think we also need great rapport. And so I have genuinely loved the Contrarians since you guys launched the pod. Adam and I had been talking about what might be next for me anyway, and so we bounced around a few ideas, and I'd come to him for advice. And the last thing he came to me with, I remember the conversation ended by me saying, I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't say the Contrarians. Like, the Contrarians is the thing that I desperately want a reason to go and do. Like, I think it's got huge potential. I think you two are frequently hilarious, but sort of always very informed. And so that's the thing I really want to do. And I remember sort of like saying it and thinking, like, what have I done? Everything suggests this is a bad idea. Like I've got a good job. I'm at the stage of life where I need stable income, all those sorts of things. But this is the sort of the thing I want to be like tempted into.
I would suggest it's a good idea. Everyone except me would say it's a bad idea. Except maybe Adam would say it's a good idea as well. I think he would say it's a good idea. But I think, this comes down to this whole discussion about startups really, in a sense, which is you can spend your whole life working for a big and successful business and doing really well and getting paid excellently. Sure. But occasionally some people have an opportunity to do something that's theirs. And when Adam introed you, he didn't say, you've come to work as the CEO. He said, you've come on board as a co-founder of this, what you call it, Contrarians Co. Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called?
Good to know you've done a lot of work into the shareholders agreement. You signed, Contrarians Podcast Co.
I know I signed something. It's like the most documentation I've done for a while. Learned that lesson. Didn't learn the reading lesson. No, I read it. It was a work of beautiful prose fiction. It was excellent. So I think, like, you got this window to do something where you're the master of your own destiny, and well, like we can do our bit, but ultimately whether this becomes what it has the potential to be or not is down to you, which, no pressure, 100% pressure, but that is a great position to be in. Like that must be a different way to wake up in the morning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've teased Adam enough. Like if I can take the opportunity
And tease me.
The most enjoyable process about the pre-signing discussion was I went for, I think it was my second coffee with Adir, and I used one of my lines, which is, tell me what you think the most likely path to this not working out is. And I thought Adir would have this really sort of cerebral business analysis. Like, oh, look, I've thought about the P&L, I've thought about the balance sheet. And he paused, and looked in the sky and said, well, you obviously understand media and you're obviously pretty smart, so I think it will just be whether you're prepared to work hard enough. and I left sort of angry, and like now I have something to prove.
Isn't that the answer?
Evil genius.
But that is the answer.
Absolutely. But when you talk about what it means to be an entrepreneur, I mean, look, this isn't like like free therapy. But I think a big part of trying to launch your own thing is a degree of dissatisfaction and sort of almost insecurity, like you've got something to prove. And I look at the Contrarians and I think, could I imagine this being a much bigger thing? Could I imagine this being something that's got hundreds of thousands of listeners and we take it on the road and it's got a great subscription product? Do I think that the way you two talk about business is something that a lot of people get value from? Like, absolutely. And so now I've just got to activate the chip on my shoulder to go and make that a reality. And that's a lot of work and obviously good choices and all those sorts of things. But I feel very, very strongly that this thing has huge potential. And so again, to use Adir's words, like take a position that feels quite contrarian, go all in, and then be right.
Yeah.
So I've got the first two bits and now I've got to do that.
I think when it comes to hard work, like having known you for 6 or 7 years, like you've always been a founder in a non-founder's body in many ways, where obviously you're kind of like you're a late stage founder at private media, saving that business, but you fit very naturally into founder mode. There's a lot of people, we work with a lot of people, both of us work with thousands of people, and some people have that ability to be a founder, some people just don't. You just don't have it. And it's not a criticism of someone who's not. We don't want 500 Adam Schwabs at this place. It wouldn't be a great place.
2. We don't want 2. 1 is the perfect number. We don't want 0.
Maybe 100.
0. Well, zero, it doesn't exist. But 2, at some point, there's a huge fight between founders, is my guess.
No, so I don't mean co-founder. I mean people who work in the business.
No, I know, but
no one.
there can be no Adam that works in a business. I don't think you are. You are not built for. You think you are. Your personality is built for working.
I was an employee of a law firm and was
for 5 seconds.
I worked there for 4 years,
and now all you talk about is how great it is to not be a lawyer.
Well, yeah, that's because being a lawyer sucks.
And some other disparaging remarks about lawyers.
Being a lawyer sucks, but like working at a law firm was fine. Like I had no issue working there. Anyway, that's a digression.
So I think there's no substitute for hard work. Basically, there can be all sorts of, when people say, work smarter, not harder. You know that, what's it, cliche? Yeah. It's rubbish, right? It is work smart and harder.
Yeah.
Whatever you're working, work harder and be smarter, but also harder. Like, I think there is just no substitute for it. And ultimately, that is whether, I just want to say this was before my time. Just to put that out there.
Cart?
You know that... what's the song? The Bee Gees song "Staying Alive."
Before your time?
Way before my time. It was like 40 years before my time.
You're like 9.
Wasn't that from the 60s?
1977.
I was born then. Yeah, that was later than I thought. So I think that is. They
died pretty quickly, actually, to a couple of the Bee Gees. Anyway, go on.
Oh, do they? I don't know where to take that conversation. My condolences to their families. So basically, that song is the theme song for a lot of things that I'm involved in life. That's the theme song when I play my coach in tennis. Yeah. I just try to stay in the points and wait for an opportunity. But that is the theme song of startups.
Totally.
Because basically the world is trying to kill your business and you have to try to figure out how to make it work.
The federal Labor government's trying to kill your business.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to that. And so I think that is really the moral of successful startups. It doesn't always work. In fact, it mostly doesn't even when you work really hard.
Yeah.
But the chances of succeeding without
That's table stakes. You can't
succeed without the hard work.
You've got to be pretty smart. You've got to work super hard, and you've got to be really lucky. Like you got to have all of it.
Yeah.
Like without the luck, doesn't matter how hard you work. There's lots of hard workers who do 3 jobs and as Uber drivers and cleaners and don't have the luck that we've had. So you need to have a combination of hard work and luck. It's, if anything, luck's the most important. But
agreed. We should ask you this question. Is any listeners going to notice any changes in the podcast, or is it going to feel the same to them?
Well, I've already briefed Adam on all the reasons why the Labour government's doing a great role. I'm bringing the woke into Contrarian. Look, I think the core programming is obviously fantastic. I mean, even just, Adir, hearing you talk about the requirement for hard work, there are sectors of our society that find that a controversial take. Like, I've had people correct me on that. I've had people say, don't say work hard. That's exactly the line you said. Say work smart. And in terms of who I am, I find that very, very frustrating. And so Adam and Adir, being Adam and Adir, talking about the week's news, laughing about the week's news and giving the kind of intelligent breakdowns that our audience love, that's not changing. What I think will change is, obviously, we want to make a much bigger impact. We want to get this content out to many more people. We'll be investing more in multimedia. So Mike's actually going to have to pull up his socks a little bit, but no.
Wake up earlier than 6:30, I reckon.
Mike is saluting right now.
Mike's sweating over there. Look at him.
Will comes in. Adam and Adir, you're doing a great job. Mike? It's time to do
Mission 1.
Remember this discussion
Kill
about
Mike.
hard work, Mike?
5 o'clock
No
AM
comment.
starts, Mike.
That's the quietest I've ever heard him in response to. He's slowly slunk under the table.
I think there will be even more of Mike, just because
He likes
I
that.
think, as I said, it's a hard business model to really wrap your language around. It is a podcast business, but as I said already, if you look at the reach of the pod, it's in the hundreds of thousands across social media from clips. And so that's the part of the business we really need to nail. Like, how can we treat that like top of funnel and take the core material and reach many, many more people with it? As I said already, I want to take it out on the road. And so we know already, we've done events together already. So you came to an event that I hosted about a year ago, and that was a big success. So we definitely want to do more of that. And then there's the question of additional products. So do we want to launch a subscription product bundle? That's a yes. Not today, but that is something that we will take on. Do we want to launch additional programming, additional shows? Yes, absolutely.
Additional talent's a big one, which we've been looking at for a while. So obviously, me and Adir are only 2 people.
You mean more guests?
As in more regular people who might help write articles for us, who might come on the pod, who might launch new pods. So I think you look at All In's done a really good job. Prof G is probably the prototype. That's a $20 million plus revenue business, obviously acquired. We look at a lot. The team at Mamma Mia have done an unbelievable job with podcasting, probably number 1 in Australia. Mark Brewis does a great job with podcast. There's a lot of amazing podcaster businesses going around. And a story of mine, and maybe not so much you guys, but we're fastidious copiers at Lucky Escape. So we see someone doing something well, we'll copy it and make it better. We're the Steve Jobs of travel tech, and we kind of have a similar principle here. If someone's doing a great job, if it's Prof G, if it's whoever, we'll take what they've done really well and adopt it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I think we know what the contours of this kind of business looks like. I don't think the core product, the core pod is only going to get better. So we will have more guests on the show. We certainly will launch some sort of podcast networks or other shows and things like that. And then, as I said, take the show out to more audiences. If I'm allowed to sort of insert a pitch or a request of the audience, I think it's 2 things, which is if you love the pod, which I know you all do, looking at the audience feedback that we got the other week, it was very informative and frequently hilarious. So we know people love the show. There is a newsletter that many of you are not subscribed to, so please do go to thecontrarianspod.com and sign up to the newsletter there.
And also it's gotten a lot better in the last 2 weeks alone. So I've written a couple of articles. Adir's going to write a few articles when he's not writing dross for the AFR.
Jeez.
What's the AFR?
Encouraging higher tax rates.
Dross, he called it dross. I'm sure we're going to hear more
So
about
Joseph
it later
Stalin
on
like
the show.
article that he wrote last week.
Joseph Stalin?
That dross wouldn't be allowed on our Substack, but when he writes his normal stuff, he'll be allowed back on. But we'll ideally get sort of 2, 3, 4 articles out a week. And this is probably the highest quality content out there. So we'll get some great, amazing writers to write for us as well. So we're super excited about that.
Absolutely. And then my second request, I mean, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur as of last week. So, look, this show is predominantly funded by advertising. And so, look, we know there's many, many brands listening into the show. We're going to hear from one of them this weekend, actually. So we're absolutely looking for more and more partners. So if people are interested in what we're doing, please do get in touch. My email, I would love to hear from listeners. I would love to hear from people who want to be involved. It's just will@thecontrarianspod.com. And so get in touch. We've got big plans and we'd love you all to be more involved.
Well, I'll keep doing my role, which is to turn up for 2 hours a week and then go home. Turn up late. And I was actually here before Adam this time.
Like the Mariah Carey at podcasting.
What, turn up and do?
No, just like the diva.
Turn
just
up,
like
sing and go home. Yeah, no, so I'll do my bit. That's what I'm best at, talking, isn't it? It's my skill in life.
We're super excited to have you on. And we'll stick
absolutely.
around for a bit of the episode as well, while we chat about random stuff.
Can I just chat about something random, which was very amazing because you usually start off, because Will has usurped your usual intro to this show, which is, what have you done this week?
Yeah, I was getting
And
to that.
usually I'm struggling to have a good answer, but I did something that was amazing.
What was that?
I mean, I didn't do
You
it.
bought
I
a
just
ticket
went-
on Luxury Escapes charter to Maldives?
Well, actually, when Will was talking about doing a live show, I thought the only way we can guarantee you'll turn up is if it's in the Maldives. So I actually went to, when I say I did something amazing, I went and sat in the audience for something. That was how amazing it was. It was, Brian Cox. You know who that guy is?
Coxie's Big Break.
That's different Cox.
As we've said previously, now that Will's on board, Mike is going to have to step up his game. You are going to be so embarrassed when you hear the answer.
Who is Coxie?
No.
Who's that
Coxie's
Coxie?
Big Break is from what, the
80s or
2000s? 80s, yeah. But hang on, it's going to.
I know the answer to this.
You think this is bad for you, but wait till you hear who he is. It's going to get much worse.
I'm pretty sure I
for
know
you.
the answer because my wife and son went to this.
Did they?
He's the physicist guy who came.
He's a physicist. He's a
I love your answer.
He's
That was way better.
Yeah, I mean, I would have gone to see that guy. Front row tickets. Coxie's Big Break.
What's Coxie's first name? Does anybody know?
No one.
Martina who works here was somewhat semi-related to Coxie somehow.
Jeff Cox.
No one has thought about that guy for 2 decades.
Coxie's big.
I mean, I'm not going to argue
Literally
that.
and metaphorically.
But, so this guy, Brian Cox, he was in a band.
Coxie too.
He's
Yeah.
English. You know him?
Sure.
Will knows him.
He's English.
He knows
every- all 70
Small
million of them.
place, right?
Yeah.
So he was in a band. He had some hits, like a rock band.
Oh, proper band.
Yeah, and he had some hits.
Like the Beatles.
And, well, not that band. And but he is from Manchester. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, beat us Liverpool, but anyway, close.
And then he decided he was going to become a
Oasis? No, Oasis, Liverpool or Manchester?
Oasis
No comment.
is
Liverpool?
I don't want to get it wrong. There's some Northerners who work at...
up north. They're from up north, and I think they're from
Mike?
I think they're from
Manchester.
Liverpool.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I thought it was Manchester.
I thought it was
but
Manchester as well,
someone's gonna
actually.
be
I'm
angry
doubting
now.
myself.
Well, they'll be a riot starter because of that. So I'll just tell you about this guy, and I'm getting to a point that's a business point about him.
Okay.
So this guy decides to become a physicist. Obviously, he's very intelligent.
Yeah.
And he ends up being a high energy particle physicist, which is mostly what goes on inside the atom, let's
Yeah.
call it. And then he ends up, like he's a professor or he's a whatever lecturer, and he starts going on shows because he's very, he's eloquent and he can tell a great narrative.
Yeah.
And he starts becoming more and more famous on these shows.
Sounds like this guy's
that
making
he
a
does.
fortune.
Well, let me tell you about his thing. So I will say, this guy put in so much effort into this show. What
It's
did
like a
your
Saturday night, right?
Yeah, I went on a Friday night. What did your family say about the show?
Well, my wife thought she'd have to leave at half time because my son's only pretty young and it was
Yeah.
running quite late. But he loved it. They said, and my wife's doing physics at uni and said it was very similar. I get like a semester of uni in 2 hours. So she was really pretty
well, I was
praising of him.
quite, because, I'm very into physics, and I was quite shocked at the sophistication
Yeah,
of the
she said it was-
content.
it was quite
But
complicated.
it was done in it was an audiovisual extravaganza.
Amazing.
It was really incredible. So this
How'd
guy...
you know about it?
Someone told me about it, actually, that he was coming. I kind of,
Oh, you know him?
I know who he is. I thought he was okay, and after this, I think he's incredible.
Yeah.
And so...
Is he like that Neil deGrasse
I think
guy,
he's
a bit?
better than Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
They all want to be like the next generation of, gosh, who was the guy that did Cosmos? I just forgot his name.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan. They all want to be the next Carl
Got that
Sagan.
one
Nailed it.
Bang.
Redemption. Was that Googled or you just
No,
nailed
no,
it?
quick for
Google.
Nails it.
Way too
Nails
quick for
it.
Google.
Okay, well done, Mike. I'm very impressed by that. You're back in the game. It just goes to show how much worse the original comment was coming from you, because you actually know what you're talking about. And so basically they all want to be Carl Sagan. And Neil deGrasse Tyson does have Carl Sagan's
He's
old
big,
job,
deGrasse. Yeah.
which is the head of the Hayden Planetarium in New York.
Yeah, I went there. He commentates it.
It's very amazing, right? And he did do the next version of Cosmos, the show,
he did.
right?
Yeah.
But I actually
He's
think
massive.
Brian Cox is better. So this is what Brian Cox does. He goes and does this show. He fills the auditorium. It's 5,500 people at the Melbourne Convention Centre. He's charging an average of, we're just going to use round numbers and say $100
Yeah,
a ticket.
it's
It's
unbelievable.
more than $100 a ticket.
And there's
okay?
thousands of people there, right?
There's 5,500.
5,500?
I just said that. That's the bit you didn't listen to a second ago.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's 5,500.
Make a big deal with the 5,500.
And so it's pretty good,
incredible.
right? And so basically, you do like the numbers on that.
500
right?
grand an episode.
Yeah,
That's
he's
500
doing-
and there's no
so
cost.
I reckon he's well. No,
It's not like Cirque du Soleil here.
No, but he has to. There are two costs. Maybe
Obviously, you've got to rent the
Yeah,
stadium.
there are
and
multiple
thing.
costs. So, and then I'll get to what I think he's making, and
Yeah.
then I'll tell you what I think he's making from his whole tour.
Yeah, it's
Because
unbelievable.
I just want to say something now, which if I wasn't Jewish, I couldn't say this. But like, what's the difference between anyone else and like a Jewish person that goes into these shows? I'm being a bit stereotypical. Everyone else just enjoys the show. The Jews count
how much
numbers
money they can-
and multiplying
I
it
did
by the
exactly the
ticket
same. I
cost.
wasn't there
No,
when I did that.
I knew you were
Yeah.
going to. Like, no Jew can just sit there and enjoy the show. It's like, what? This guy's making $500,000 to do this? You know how hard I work?
It's like on an art gallery. How much did that one cost you?
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, so and so I think that the cost would be he has got to hire the place.
That's cheap. That's not expensive.
It would be a bit. The audiovisual stuff was expensive
50 grand max
to hire the place.
Yeah.
But I think the audiovisual stuff he would have a team putting that together.
Okay, yeah.
And he brings his own AV wherever he goes because
Yeah.
it's so big the
Yeah.
show. And then there's like, you got to do all of the people that are selling the tickets and promoting and all of that stuff. The merch was hopeless. I was shocked. Like Taylor Swift makes a lot of money out of merch.
Yeah.
His merch was junk, okay? And so
And
I would have bought.
He would have bought. Yeah,
I would have
heaps
bought
of
merch. Okay, it was like a trestle table with two people that opened like the back
God.
of their caravan. It was like anyway.
Coxy lift.
It was not great. So I think he's pocketing half on average.
I think
I think
higher than half.
that
I
would
reckon
be
he's
typical. And so
it's typical for like a Taylor Swift or Taylor Swift doesn't take any risk because promoters pay her. But like that's typical for a artist like that. But there's very little cost with this. He's not having to pay 100 backup singers and all. He's like it's very low cap.
well, let's
it's
even
very
assume
low.
it's half. Okay,
Yeah.
let's assume. And so last tour he did.
Even more Jewish having an argument how much they're making. Not just thinking about how much
that's
they're making.
right. Next we'll be saying, does he deserve that? Actually, he did for this.
Yeah.
And so it was really a great show. And so the last tour
I
he
mean,
did,
obviously paying zero tax. He's not an Australian resident, so he's coming in.
he's not
ripping
paying
up-
any tax in Australia.
Yeah.
And
Probably
so
Monaco resident. So.
And so he, last tour he did, he got 365,000 people around
Serious?
the world. This time I reckon he'll get $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I reckon it's a big global tour.
Yeah.
90 shows.
Oh.
And so I think if you multiply that out, it's not $100. It's got to be closer to 150.
Yeah.
But let's just say 100 USD.
Some places
okay?
cheaper, some
Let's just say
places
100 USD. He's got 500,000 people.
Yeah.
And he's charging 100 USD.
He's making 50
That's
USD.
50 mil USD. And he's
Yeah.
got to be keeping half.
And that's the annual. That's a 1 year.
But he does. So I
Not
think he
even a
does
year.
these shows every couple of years.
I know, but the show, the 52, or whatever, the 50 dates not going to take him a year. That's
Who
like-
would ever have thought? Can you imagine talking to this guy when he was 24 years old?
Yeah.
He's in a rock band. He
Unbelievable.
thinks this is his big break to be famous. Doesn't work out. I mean, they had a big song. Doesn't
Yeah.
work out. He plays a bit of music on the stage.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin what he plays. It's very fun. And so then he says, I'm just going to become a physicist. And he's a smart physicist.
Incredible.
It was very good stuff. And it turns out that's how he makes like $100 million by being a physicist.
Yeah.
It's actually an incredible,
It's actually
incredible
unbelievable.
bit of
It shows how
entertainment.
niches are so profitable. And we talk about us being a niche, but this is even a niche. This is like, not that I wouldn't have thought that many people super inspiring.
Neither would I.
Physics,
but the diversity
there
at
is.
this show was incredible. And like the only
Young
thing,
and old and male and
and
female.
and also people that look very different from one another,
Yeah.
like physically look very different. And you would think, what have they got in common? They're kind of all nerds at heart,
Yeah.
right? It's heavy duty physics, some of this stuff. I mean, it's not, there's one equation in the whole show. So he steers clear of equations, but like it's pretty detailed. And
Yeah.
so I just think
Good on him. That's
we're
great.
still living in a good world
Yeah.
where a guy that talks about physics, he's basically giving physics lectures,
Yeah.
and he can make $50 million a
amazing.
year.
Yeah.
That is still a good world, right?
Do
Unbelievable.
you think, to what extent is that business only possible because of social media?
Well, that's a good question. I think it would still be successful if there was not social media, but definitely it accelerates the velocity of him being able to do a global tour. But I thought you were going to say, to what extent is that business dependent on him as an individual? Absolutely. And I think it segues exactly into what you were saying, which is that is a celebrity-based business built around a single personality. Anyone else doing the same show, even if it was the same show, could not even get an audience, I don't think. Now, he is an amazing entertainer, I will say that. So, you know.
There's a way you dismiss that business, which is, this is just a sort of further influencerization of everything we do. And I want to be really clear that you can only do that business if you're extremely talented. I mean, this is a 1 in a million guy. Like, former rock star becomes quantum physicist.
Or less than 1 in a million. One, maybe. Sure. Just 1 in a billion.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point, right? But if you try to do that show without relying on that kind of unique talent, well, then you do need to have a team of 100 and you're reliant on all the capital expenditure of the lights and the rays and all these sorts of things. And so I don't know if it's where all the revenue will come from, but I think there's a lot of margin to come from businesses that are reliant on well-known personalities, and the personalities become the marketing. That's how you reach everyone, and that's how you get whatever, you fill like 5,000 people.
So I totally agree with you. So that is what I did with that was the highlight of my week. It was super enjoyable. I wasn't really that much looking forward to going because, like, he's interesting, but like the level of effort that he put into this show was
the same.
just
like, her and William were
mind-blowing.
like, I think they were happy to go, but they raved about it. So it's really similar. So congratulations to Coxie for not Big Break Coxie, Brian Coxie.
So is this what your wife is planning on doing? That's her career
She might be
trajectory?
Brian Cox too.
Yeah, like do physics. She's studying physics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very impressive.
Doing a couple of things. I had a pretty big week last week. Mm.
I saw your big week last week.
We had LA Live, which was incredible. The team just lifted.
So you should explain what that is, because you kind of mentioned that in passing.
I did
LA Live,
giving it a plug.
And I was a bit like, that sounds cool. But then I saw it online.
Did you come to LA?
Let's say I was away. And I saw it online and I was shocked that you basically took out the exhibition buildings in Melbourne. And it was all luxury escapes.
Yeah, so you always get a bit nervous because the first time you do something, is it going to work? Like we started planning it not that long ago, probably 7 months ago maybe. So we had to get a bunch of corporate partners to help underwrite the event because it's about $1.5 million to put it on, speaking of capital costs. And then we obviously had to get we got a bunch of commercial partners, hotels, tour operators, blah, blah. We had amazing hosts, Sarah Davidson and Jack Felgate and Miguel and Shane Dealey came on. So we had some great partner talent. But ultimately it's all for nothing if you can't get people to rock up. So that's always the risk.
And what were you, I don't want to say selling, but like what would be the motivator for someone to come?
There's a couple of reasons. One is, like, people need travel ideas. Like, we obviously give them online, but having in-person travel advice and expert advice, be it at a booth or we had a stage as well. So we had people talking on the side. Did a few sessions. We had about maybe 50 different sessions.
So there used to be this thing called maybe the Travel and Leisure Show or something.
Well, Flight Centre did a big travel expo every year. I think, having seen ours, they're now bringing their one back, funnily enough. But so this is not, like, there's stuff in the States, there's a 40,000 person one.
But this is not just you trying to sell LA packages. You're trying to do a broader travel show.
We do, we have a lot of partners there. So you could be APT, you could be a tour company, you could be a hotel. So people can, essentially, they're offering special packages that you could buy there or a week after. So if you want to get the special package, you just have to go through us. But if you just saw this hotel in a year's time, you want to stay there, people just stay there or go to it. So it's very much brand building.
Do people pay to get in?
Totally free if you're a Luxury Escapes member. There was a $29 charge if you weren't, but you might as well sign up for free and get in. So we were hoping for 10,000 people. That was sort of our aspirational goal. And we got to 13,000, which is a good result. For a first year, I think we can do 20,000 next year.
You should have gotten Coxie down there.
We should have got
Coxie. He'd get people. He'll tell you how many neutrinos are passing through your body at any point in time when you're
real
there.
Coxie.
A lot.
But it was what I'm super proud of was how well the team did. These people worked through the night. It was multiple nights. It was, and I can't name them because there are too many, but it was just there's probably a couple of hundred people. There was 100 people who worked on the days, but a couple hundred people who made it happen. So it was super proud to see that. And then literally 24 hours later, we had our first Maldives charter. So the marketing team had 2 massive lifts. I got to the airport and there were people everywhere, and Mark, who was running it for us, and Chris, who did it for us.
Was that the first paid charter with paying customers?
Yeah, so it was our first charter. Yeah, and we had girls and marketing team up there till 11 o'clock at night after being 2 days at LA Live, which was incredible to back it up. So there was just so many people who made that happen as well over probably even a shorter period. So that was I think we probably signed with Maldivian under 6 months ago. So it was a bit of a rush.
Very impressive.
And full. First flight was basically full. Had lots of great celebs and partners and media on board.
We'll do a Contrarians thing in
should
the
do a Contrarians,
Maldives
yeah.
with your charter flight.
We don't have first class. I presume you won't come as a result of that.
I'm sure that
We only got business.
I'm sure there's business.
We've got
class.
business, but I thought you didn't go
Yeah, I'm
business.
fine with that. You always make fun of me. I'll sit in economy if you sit in economy. You sit in economy.
We were hoping to do.
You can have the middle seat. I'll have the aisle.
Well, we've got 242 in economy, which is actually pretty good. So you get
That's good.
You don't have to sleep over 3 people,
Yeah.
or 2 people if you're on there. So the economy seat, because it's a kind of 15-year-old what is it, KSL, the Dutch carrier?
What are you talking
What's the
about?
carrier that was the old Scandinavian airline, the merger with Air France?
KLM?
KLM. It's an old KLM plane.
If you want
KSL's a
to
private
know
equity
anything about travel, you know who to come to. Whatever you want to know, I'll let you know, okay?
So it's about 15-year-old car. So great. It was in its day, it would have been as good as anyone in the world. And now it's flying a Qantas plane to Hawaii or
What
Singapore.
aircraft is it?
It's a 330, so twin
Okay,
aisle.
that's nice.
So it's not as good as like a brand new Qatar or Singapore Airlines flight, but you're
that's
paying
nice.
half as much.
Qantas just flying those to Singapore, I think, aren't they?
Qantas flight, yeah, same as what you fly to Qantas,
Yeah.
Qantas Singapore, Qantas to Hawaii,
Yeah.
or Fijian Airlines. So yeah, it's a really solid plane, plenty of room, and ran on time, which is great. We landed, and the landing in the welcome in Maldives was
I saw
unbelievable.
that.
There's like 200 people. There was politicians, there was trade minister, the foreign minister. We had a gift giving ceremony, which was lovely.
I didn't get a gift.
We gave
You gave them or you got
We
them?
both gave and got.
No, well, I get nothing on this podcast.
And Laurie from Melbourne Airport was there, and they did an amazing job making it happen. So it was a real thrill, and we're pretty much sold out the first 6 weeks. Got a few seats in June, then we've sold out again during school holidays, and then a few seats in August. So jump on before we sell out completely. We're hoping to extend it into next year, but we're just seeing how
That's
fuel costs
amazing.
play out.
So when you go to Melbourne Airport, do you have to go through the same security everyone else does?
Security.
Or
I think even Laurie had to go. I think Laurie had to go to the same security
Really?
as well. So, but I definitely
funny.
went to the same security and actually got straight through this time, which was quiet.
No
when we went through.
complaints? Of course no complaints now because the head of the airport was on the flight. Yeah, what a remarkable coincidence. Suddenly, no complaints. It was completely smooth.
I had to give 5 speeches in 24 hours in Maldives, which was fun. Then came back, so it was a whirlwind 72 hours, but it was great. So and super proud of the team. We had actually a record contribution margin day on Monday as well, which was nice after a tougher month.
What a
with the
week,
war.
huh?
Well, that was a good bit. The bad bit
What a
was
week.
the bad bit was obviously the budget isn't getting any better. So let's move into this.
Well, can I
budget horribilis.
tell you something you were right about before we go to the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then I'll tell you something that will
Devote a whole show to this.
Then I'll tell you something that will infuriate you and get you worked up in preparation for your budget conversation, which is
It's gonna
very
need more
short.
working up.
Both of these relate to you. Which I know that's your favourite topic. So,
Me and Scott Galloway love talking about ourselves.
so you know your pitch to me. I don't know if it was last episode, whenever it was, about Lime bikes. Was that last episode?
Last episode.
Okay.
Great
You were
episode.
trying to pitch
That was a
me
good segment.
Okay, very good. So, you know, I don't feel like the praise counts for much when it's us giving it to each other. But you go ahead. You tell me. You should focus on how great I am, okay? So, basically, you tried to pitch me network effects for Lime. Do you remember? And you kind of got me a bit of the way there.
I listened to that and thought, I made some great points.
Yeah, well, don't get carried away with that because I heard a better argument than your argument, but
Okay.
I'm still going to give you the network effects argument.
Okay, great.
And this is a guy.
I'll take the better argument.
This is a guy, Lippy, whose office in Israel I recorded out of
Your
when
mate.
I was in
Yeah.
Israel. He runs Multiply
Yeah.
Me, a business. And so,
We had him on the pod.
correct. Oh, yeah, good memory. Much better than mine, in fact, despite the fact that he's my friend.
Just after October 7, we had one.
Yes, you're right. And so this is what he said about Tel Aviv. And I think he's absolutely right. He said, you can have scale and you can put tons of bikes in Tel Aviv, but what really makes it great is
As in
that-
Lime specifically.
Yeah, Lime. He said there's 3 different brands in Tel Aviv.
Yep.
And they all put heaps of bikes in. Actually, it's more scooters there than bikes, but it's a mix. And what makes Lime better is that way more people use them. Now we're getting to network effects. And what that means is the person that uses it and lives a bit further north, they go and leave it further north. And then when I want to get the bike further north,
That's exactly what I said last week.
That wasn't
It
exactly
was
your point.
Literally my exact point.
That's
My
not
point
what I
is
took out of your point.
more people who use it make the network better for others because there's more bikes. They can afford to have more
But it's
bikes.
not about more.
Literally the same point
I know.
made.
Well, I'm happy.
It's outrageous.
I'm happy you reiterate that point because it's absolutely not the same point. The point
Call
is not
Chris
how many
Antomo. Let's
bikes.
get- someone's
the
getting sued for defamation
The
here.
point is not how many bikes there are. The point is if I'm north and I want to bike up north in the north part of the city.
More nodes improves experience for others. Exactly what the point I was
but
making.
but it's not about how many bikes you have. You can have the same number of bikes as a competing.
It's about how many people who use it.
and leave it in different places around the city. Was that the point you were trying to make?
The point is more people using it makes it better. That's exactly the point.
Well,
I
I
was
understand what network effects is. Thank you
And
for
that was an example,
clarifying
but
that.
he's-
But,
maybe
all right, well, whether
did a
it
good
was you
job
that said
explaining
it,
what I
him,
explained.
or between the two of you, I do agree that there are network
do agree with
effects
you that
with
is a
this
good point.
business.
Yeah.
There are. Now, let me tell you the other point that you're going to love, and it will get you worked up, and we can roll into your budget stuff. So I'm driving down the road not far from from where we record this pod at your office, and I see a billboard, and the billboard just has these words on it, because your postcode here is 3206. Is that correct?
Albert Park is,
Yes. Okay. And this is what the billboard says. It says, I wrote this down. It says, delivering for 3206. That's the whole billboard.
Yeah.
What company do you think that is? Delivering for 3206.
Australia Post.
Yes, it's a good guess. Australia Post. How do you think I felt about that billboard? You think that's getting them a lot of business?
What do they need the business for? They've got a monopoly anyway.
What in the hell are they spending that money for? Taking billboards saying delivering for 3206. Does the ambulance advertise? Saying when you have a heart attack, we'll come and get you. No, because there's not a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was, they're always asking for more money.
It's like Woodside sponsoring Fremantle. They're a B2B business that owns the gas field.
I know, but they probably wanted good seats. But basically.
Who's chairman of both?
Yeah.
Your mate Richard Goyder.
Funny coincidence. So,
Or ex-chairman of it.
But what are they doing? Complaining about, they have to cut services.
Yeah.
They're cutting services.
Every fourth day. Yeah, of course, they're always cutting services.
And this is how they're spending their money. I just thought that was completely infuriating when I saw that.
The CMO there has to earn that $1 million salary. That's what they're doing.
They've got a marketing budget.
Yeah.
And they've got to spend the marketing budget. And so do you think, are they running that in every postcode around Australia or just Albert Park? I just thought it was the biggest waste of ultimately.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Ultimately.
Our money.
Is it taxpayer money? Do they run at a profit or not?
It doesn't matter. It's still taxpayer money.
Which direction does cash flow in with Australia Post? I think it flows back to the government.
It depends on it used to go massively to the government. Now I think it actually doesn't, but it depends on the year.
But I just thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I agree.
Get worked up. Come
So
on,
the
what do you
budget
got?
news cycle refused to move on, with the Prime Minister becoming teary last week as he told a speech to the Victorian Labor Party's conference that federal government had thrown everything at increasing housing supply and lifting home ownership rates needed to be done.
By everything, he means nothing.
No, pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
He said Australian taxpayers were a partner in every investment property due to generous tax breaks, while young people continue to miss out on buying their first home. Of course, most of the proposed budget changes have absolutely nothing to do with property, with Albanese and his arch-degree holding treasurer replacing the 50% CGT deduction on all assets with a ham-fisted inflation-based model underpinned by a 30% floor. And negative gearing with limit to investments in new properties. The AFR appears to be listening to us, knowing that rather than being a budget that supports aspiration, the biggest winners are naturally wealthy older voters who keep virtually all their tax advantages. Let me just list a few of the advantages the older people still keep in this so-called intergenerational fixing budget. So retirees have long structured their financial affairs to enable them to qualify for an age pension to get access to lucrative pensioner concession card. This provides discounted doctor visits, medication, utility bills, and they're now even exempt from the 30% GST floor. Bear in mind, 63% of Australians over 67 get the pension. So it's not like it's a few people. It's the majority of old people get it. Super remains the greatest Rort of all time, and I actually didn't realise just how much of a Rort Super was.
They've changed the nature of Super with this budget. Tell your
It's
Rort,
got even Rortier.
and I'll tell you how I think people need to use self-managed super in a different way as a result of this budget. But go on with your Rorts.
Well, I didn't realise that CGT and Super's like 0% if you're effectively retired. So you pay zero CGT.
Yeah, so we should be precise about this. So if you're in what's called pension phase, which means you're drawing money out of super.
Retirement phase, yeah.
Yeah, it's called pension phase. That's just the name of what it is in the...
Versus accumulation phase, which is where you're putting money into.
And so there's a minimum that you need to draw out each year, and the amount that you draw out is tax-free, and the gains made inside super during the pension phase are tax-free as well, notwithstanding, this $3 million and $10 million caps.
I don't mind the drawing out, because drawing out's kind of realistic, but it's more the earning that's the problem. Like the fact that you can earn in super versus earning out of super, and super's tax-free.
But you should think about this in terms of drawing out. I agree with you, there's not an issue with it being tax-free, but everyone else who earns income has to report it on their income tax return and pay tax on it. But the money that you take out, it's treated like a bank account, which would be fine if it was a bank account, but it's not. It's an investment account that you are paying no tax, no capital gains tax on, and then also drawing out tax-free. So there is no tax.
Yeah. So it's under like 2 million. There's the threshold. The thresholds are pretty high. Thresholds are pretty high. And bear in mind, your primary residence doesn't count. So, and when we talked about that 63% of people on the pension, if you got a $20 million house, that's ignored. It's called ignored for the means testing. So you can
Yeah.
own this like crazy expensive house and still get the pension that young people are paying for out of their 47% GST.
Yes. Well, you want me to tell you why self-managed super has changed?
Yes, please.
So that remains the only very tax-advantaged way to achieve capital gains. And so there's a what's it called? Not a single purpose test, but it's something, it's got a name like that, which means
Sole purpose test,
exactly. The purpose of superannuation has to be only for the accumulation of retirement savings for whoever the trustee of the super fund is, the beneficiary. And so in the past, the assets in super were pretty conservative, and there's limits to what you can actually put in super.
You weren't about to buy property, for
That's
example.
right. But now you can take loans in super to do all sorts of things. And so the nature of these changes means if you want to I'm not advocating this, by the way, but I just want to be blunt about unintended consequences. If you want to make...
Was it unintended? Apparently, Paul Keating came up with these changes and Mr. Super himself. So it may have been intended.
Well, if you want to go... Well, I doubt this was intended. If you want to go and invest in riskier assets that are more likely to generate higher growth, but also might lose your money, the only logical place left to make that investment is inside super.
Yeah.
Because any asset that grows substantially over a period will be taxed at a higher rate of tax than a poorly performing asset. And so super all of a sudden has a totally changed risk profile because of these tax changes. It's pretty absurd, really.
But look, if you look at all these, and obviously the primary residence exemption remains, the negative gearing remains if you own the assets, which of course you have to be old to own the assets already. And people get their CGT value grandfathered. So if I own a business worth $1 billion as of next year, I'll get that $1 billion value. So every single thing has been tilted, even like we already had the most unfair tax system you could imagine for older people. Well, I thought you could imagine, and they just made it worse. And funny enough, been pretty active on LinkedIn those last couple of weeks. Pretty much the only people who seem to be supporting these changes are rusted on Labor types, fair enough, they're going to support anything Labor says, and old wealthy white men. They're the only people who seem to be supporting this change.
Well, I'm not sure the colour of their skin is. I mean, I'm sure if there were old wealthy Indians or Chinese...
But none of these people seem like, I think maybe...
Well, they might not be exposed
because they understand aspiration. I think these old wealthy white men have made millions of dollars like just sucking off the taxpayer teat, like a lot of them are. They've been ex-politicians, ex-Labor advisors, like an ex-minister. It's like half the ex-Labor Party washed up hacks who get paid by the government have spent their time commenting on my LinkedIn posts. Not a single young female founder's commenting on this misogynist policy that Chalmers has brought in.
Well, people don't understand that every aggressive... I saw a back and forth that you had on LinkedIn with a post that you posted this week.
Yeah.
And the guy came off really second best. And what he doesn't realise is, that is your energy drink. So let me tell you a couple, instead of just ranting about this, because there is a lot to rant about, and then I'm very open to your criticism of my article.
What's coming?
I look forward to arguing with you on that. But let me tell you, I thought you'd be interested in some OECD facts.
Yeah.
What is it? Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development.
30 countries in there now?
I think it might be 35 of 35 developed. I don't know if you can say developed anymore. I'm going to say developed.
Yeah.
Developed economies. So here are some facts about that. Before I tell you that, let me explain. I'll explain in a second. So here's a fact. So when you look at the share of total tax that is contributed by income tax on wages in the OECD, roughly what ballpark percentage do you think it is?
Across, if you average that out, everybody.
Average it out. What percentage of the tax take?
35%.
It's like low 20s, okay?
That low?
23, 24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And now some of these countries have separate social security taxes.
Yeah, add 15% for the US.
But most countries don't have state taxes. The US has state taxes depending on the state, right?
Yeah.
And so it's average low 20s, low to mid 20s. What do you think Australia is at? What share of our tax take is from income tax? Australia.
Oh, so I misunderstood the question.
The first one was the OECD average.
So I thought you were asking what average tax rate do people pay?
No, well, that's a more complicated question. But what if you took at the total tax pool?
Yeah.
How much does income tax contribute? On average, it's in the low to mid 20s of the OECD.
Is it like 40 to 50?
Yeah, it's like 40s. And so basically, I think it's like 24 versus 42 or something like that.
GST in there or GST?
Well, I'll talk to you about that separately in a second. So
Would you put CGT in there?
CGT is not income tax, and so we are much more reliant on taxing people when they earn their wages as a percentage of the total tax take versus
which is getting worse every year because Jim Chalmers refused to index the brackets.
Indexing, right? We'll get to that. And so now You know, the average full-time salary in Australia is a full-time wage. It's a bit misleading, but it's a full-time adult wage is about 100K for an individual. The top tax bracket in Australia kicks in at 190K. That idea of 1.9 times the mean, it's not the median, it's the mean salary. Like that is very, very low. Like the US kicks in at 10 times.
500,000, right?
Yeah, Singapore's 1 million Singapore dollars, like 14 times the average salary. Like even New Zealand, which has a lower tax rate, I think their top tax rate is
no
39,
CGT.
And no CGT. They kick in at 2.6 times the average wage. So we kick in really low. Now we talk about the consumption tax, which we call GST. So confusing, these three acronyms.
CGT
They
and
got to
GST are very
change some
similar.
letters here, right? So the GST, that's our consumption tax. What do you think the average rate of consumption tax is in the OECD?
About 10%, I would have thought.
So it's 19.3%.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's higher.
And we are at 10%.
Yeah.
And you can see the game that's going on here. Basically, nobody wants to raise the GST because then everyone hates you.
Yeah.
To Howard's credit, he took the GST
Unbelievable.
to an election as an incumbent.
Yeah.
You can't. So what I've worked out is you can't take tax to an election from the opposition, but you can take it as an incumbent. That's what makes Elbow even more egregious.
Do what Elbow and Chalmers just lie about it.
Yes, that
50
makes
times.
it more egregious because they're doing it from incumbency.
What makes it so egregious is the fact they expressly said they would not do it and then 6 months later did it. That's just disgusting.
I
And they
think-
always plan on doing it.
So I don't think they always plan on doing it. I think what happened is that the Liberal Party lost Albury seat to One Nation, and they basically woke up and said, there's no opposition in this country. If ever we're going to do something, now is the time. When they say we thought about it 3 weeks ago, I think they're telling the truth about that. I think they just thought, we've always kind of wanted to do this, but we weren't planning on it. But my God, like there's no Liberal coalition in this country anymore. We can do it now. No one's going to listen to them. So I think what's happening is no one wants to lift the GST. And what probably has to happen in this country, if we were honest about it, is the GST needs to go up.
Yeah.
Payroll tax needs to go at the state level, and income taxes need to come down. And CGT does not need to be touched. But with negative...
Well, CGT should be 0%, really, like it is in
that's a whole
Singapore and New
debate.
Zealand.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but like we don't have to have that
It
debate.
certainly shouldn't be
'Cause-
30% like somebody wrote in the AFR this week.
Well, let's argue about that. Let me tell you one other thing before you criticise me.
I think you got Stockholm
about that.
syndrome.
All right, thank you. I'm
You're Paddy
very,
Hearst, I'm doing
you
a
know,
podcast
whenever
with.
I'm wondering what is wrong with me psychologically, you're not the first person I think of to go to. So let me just tell you something else that that I think is going to become quite topical, and that is the following. So 35% of capital gains tax in Australia is paid by 1% of transactions.
Yep.
So there's a bit of a theme I think that exists, which is whatever the government has forecast that it is going to collect from these new taxes, it will be collecting much less than that.
Yeah.
Because people will
That always
rearrange
happens.
their tax
Yeah,
affairs
exactly.
and not pay
And people
the
just won't
tax.
sell, they'll just borrow off their holdings.
And so, do you know there's this thing called the Laffer curve, which I think is going to
Laffer.
become quite popular in discourse,
Yeah.
which is, you know what this curve is?
Made
Cigarette
famous.
sales.
It's
modelled Laffer curve.
Yes, it's for cigarette sales. But it's a broader. It's a
Wasn't it
broader.
made famous by Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good bit
It
of
was in Ferris.
trivia.
Who was the Ben, what's his name? Who was the teacher in Ferris
Before
Bueller's
my,
Day Off?
it's before my time.
Win Ben someone's money.
Coxie.
It was before my time, so I'm not sure.
You ever watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I have seen the
All right,
movie.
well, back on. Let's just get off the back road and back onto the main road. And so, basically, this curve essentially is the relationship between increasing taxation and demand.
Also the decrease.
and taxes.
It's
You
also
sorry,
it's trickle down.
Let me just start again. It's the relationship between increasing tax and tax collections.
Yeah.
And so. There's all these complicated graphs, but really you could draw it as an inverted U, let's call it, where you increase taxes and your tax take goes up, but you pass this point and suddenly you collect less tax. That is what's currently happening in the UK.
Yeah.
So tax collection
What's
as a
left.
result of all of these taxes on
The non-dom rules.
wealthy people, is going down. And so almost...
Happened in France, they reversed it.
That's right.
Happened everywhere.
Almost certainly this increase in capital gains tax is going to result in reduced collections. That is what happened with cigarettes. They put the tax up so much that people now buy illegal cigarettes and the tax take has plummeted.
The irony about that,
plummeted.
everybody knows that's a disaster. And it wasn't Labor's fault. Like that's been, every government keeps increasing it because it was an easy win.
Because you say, I'm doing it for health reasons.
Yeah. And eventually, like, Labor just happened to be in power when it trickled over that to your Laffer curve point. But instead of just reducing the excise on tobacco, which they should have done 2 years ago and could have significantly actually increased revenue and also stopped bombings, they, for some reason, haven't and are targeting like young female founders. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, well, there is you're going to criticise me after I say this, but because I'll say this and then you can criticise. So there's a war going on inside the Labor Party at the moment between, we can call it the Cha-Cha War. It's between Chalmers and you know who the other one
Andrew
is?
Charlton.
Andrew Charlton. Now, Andrew Charlton, he's a winner. This guy
Sold Alpha Beta for $50 million, right?
and so he's taken a ton of money. I reckon he's got somewhere between $50 and $100 million. I was going to say he's involved in business. He's involved in consulting, so an adjacency to business, right?
Business,
It's like to build a business.
No, totally. Yeah, he's a real business
This
guy.
guy almost certainly got shares for zero because founder shares, no cost base.
Yeah, of
so
course.
this wouldn't be good for him.
No.
So when he says, like, I support this and some of my asset sales in the past would have been better under this system, it's almost certainly untrue. I couldn't think of a single asset he could have
But he's
sold.
actually been pretty, relative to Chalmers, he's been pretty good.
Except his interview with Sky News was just one bit of dishonesty after the next, right? But basically there is, it's pretty clear he wants to be treasurer. He's actually qualified, which might be...
Couldn't be any worse than the current guy.
Well, it could be a disadvantage to be qualified. There's a Yes Minister episode where basically the Prime Minister, I think he's just a minister at that stage, does this whole dissertation of why not being an expert is a huge advantage in being a minister. It's a great scene. But I think that you see Charlton now going on some shows, doing the rounds. He can explain it better. He had inadvertently lobbied against the government's trust changes without realising. Also, he was asked about, do you have trusts? Of course, I have family trusts. Do you do it to reduce tax? No, I do it for 112 other reasons, not to reduce tax. I think he should have just been honest and said, of course I do it to reduce tax because there's loopholes to reduce tax. We're closing the loopholes that I used because they shouldn't be there. Instead, he tries to lie about it. If he didn't do it to reduce tax, he's a complete moron, and he's not that, right? So I think that's an interesting battle to watch play out, and I'm not sure Chalmers makes it to the next election as
look at Jim
treasurer.
Chalmers 6 months ago. He was a pretty dependable, middle of the road. He's not going to be too controversial, and now he's turning into a raging communist in the space of 6 months. Like, what does happen to this guy? Yeah. Like, it's just. Then you've got Daniel Petrie and Paul Keating chiming in. So you got Paul Keating, that geriatric old fool who was a great prime minister, but now it's completely lost the plot.
By the way, I don't think it's an old fool. I think he's still sharp from what I hear about him.
Oh, I think he's lost the plot.
But his views his views are stuck in a time where he can hold on to the narrative that says, I was the greatest thing that ever happened to Australia.
And he did some great things as treasurer. No, this is the most un-Keating-like policy ever, even though he's reportedly behind a lot of it, but now he's just geriatric. Like, the Keating of 1987 is not releasing this policy at all. Like,
I agree with you on
his capital gain, everybody's going, oh, they're just reverting to my capital gain. This isn't Keating's capital gains tax at all. There's no averaging. There's a 30% minimum. It's a completely different tax.
You should say there's no averaging because you introduced me to this. I didn't realise.
Well, you introduced me to this originally.
Did I?
And I introduced you. Yeah, you told me about it. We spoke about this 2 weeks ago. You were first on the scene with this.
Well, I think I understood like the mathematical implications,
Inherently.
but then you said what they actually, that's right. I introduced you to the concept of it shafts people that had been on a low income and suddenly they get a gain in 1 year and they don't get the benefit of, they're not really high income
Splitting
earners.
it,
they're just 1 year they were high. And then I went back after you pointed it out and looked and I saw that what the Keating version of this did was if you buy something for $20 and you sell it for $100 and you have an $80 gain, that's a terrible number. If you buy something for $120 and if you buy something for $20, you sell it for $120, you have a $100 gain, you would take 20% of that gain, put it on your tax and work out what tax rate you'd pay on that and then apply that to the entire gain. And that's a version of averaging it over 5 years. Not perfect, but simple. And this doesn't have any of that in it.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
They just didn't think about it. They rushed it out in 3 weeks. But you got Keating, who, great treasurer now, 83-year-old, like, he sold his business for $40 million in 2024, paid a discounted amount of tax, gets all these government, he gets $1 million a year of government taxpayer funded stuff. And this is the guy who's waiting in on that young people should be forced to pay double GST. Like, it's just outrageous, the hypocrisy. Then you got Daniel Petrie, a guy who...
You're very worked up about Daniel, but I like him. And also I'm not talking
about him personally.
I'm going to tell you something at the end of this that I think you'll agree with. But you're piling on him, and I mean, he did come out and make some comments.
But the audacity to come out...
Joe Aston piled on him today. Did you see that?
I'm saving that because, like, you know, you get
who else piled on? Rear Window piled on to him. Caviar. Everyone's piled. It's a pile on. It's a pile on.
Well, this guy came out and abused people for doing exactly what he's done for 20 years. His Canva carry is hundreds of millions of dollars that will be grandfathered in under this discounted capital gains rate.
Canva carry is part of Airtree, you mean?
Because Airtree invests in Canva and for a low valuation. Now it's worth $60 billion. He'll make a fortune, this guy.
But I do want to say one thing about him and others like him. In a way, they can't say anything, and maybe they shouldn't.
Of course he shouldn't.
But the thing is this, if he says you should it's unfair, then people will say, yeah, of course you think it's unfair because like you're all this rich guy and you want to make more money on cheap tax. And if he says it's fair, then people like you come out and say, yeah, of course you got the benefit of it, blah, blah. So he kind of can't win no matter what he
can
says.
win. I think the problem with it...
Steve Baxter polled on him as well. He had a bit of a
Steve,
fun
friend of
back
the
and
pod.
forth on LinkedIn. That's a fair fight. Two gorillas. Like you let them fight,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, I was just Steve. I think Steve won that on points.
Well,
easily.
I think that's just like differences in position wrapped in some aggression, basically.
The outrageousness of this whole thing and of Keating and Petrie's views is we all think something should be done about this intergenerational inequality. But what Labor's done has made it worse, not better. So to come on simply because you're a Labor guy and you love Labor, to simply just support this policy, like we've voted Labor as much as we've voted Liberal over the last 20 years. Not as if we're rusted on Labor haters at all.
Yeah.
But what's happened is they've lied to us and created a policy that's simply terrible for young people across the board. That's the problem with it.
So tell me, now you can move from criticising them
Well,
to
being
criticising
incredible for
me.
old people.
Criticise me.
Oh, so you came up. So
Come on.
I opened the financial review. My favourite
You opened
journalist,
it.
Adir Schiffman.
You loaded the
No, I
financial
get the hard copy.
You
paper.
opened the paper. Was
get
it in
the paper.
print?
Oh, actually, no, I'm making that up.
I think it was. I assumed it probably was, but I didn't check.
Yeah, I presume it was, but I was actually also. I was in Maldives at the time actually, so I would have been online. But I think Adir's going to come to the rescue of these young founders. What did I read?
Which I did.
30% capital gains tax you want them to pay.
Well, did I want them to pay it?
Well, it sounded like you did.
Okay, so we can summarise in one line and say, I think that there's a bad problem for people that build businesses in that this CGT change is being sold as they are inflation adjusting the gain, but they're not. They're inflation adjusting the cost base. So even if you buy something that has a cost base and then you sell it and they adjust the cost base, what that means is they're saying it's like you bought it this morning and sold it this afternoon. Okay, if I did that, I'd be happy to pay higher tax, but what about the last 10 years? And so the way you inflation adjust a gain is you inflation adjust the sale price. And that stops a whole lot of problems. I thought, as we have discussed, the bigger the gain, the higher the tax rate you pay. Totally. I thought that was a bug. It turns out it's a feature. That's what Treasury wanted. Presumably because they're all bad at investing would be my guess.
Well, none of them had a business.
It's so crazy. Anyway.
Jenny Wilkinson, Jim Chalmers, Anthony Albanese have never worked a day of their life in the private sector. They're all three taxpayer-funded
I'm with you.
leeches.
Sold.
So of course they don't know how to write policy.
And so basically I said the problem is when they index the base, it's very bad for people who build businesses, but it shouldn't be limited to tech bros who get all of the airtime.
Yeah, totally.
It should also be a hairdresser, a florist, or whoever else.
Yeah.
These all are.
I hate limiting to tech. It's outrageous.
We have the same view on this. So far we're aligned, and this is where we deviate.
Yeah.
You want to do a version of war that is, I'm going to fight. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. That's your attitude to life, which I generally agree with, okay? But you would rather die in glory on the battlefield than take an injury but live to fight another day. And so what I mean by that is there is a chance that Elbow will completely flip on the CGT because he completely flipped on the Royal Commission. The reason he completely flipped
on the last bunch of super changes.
That's right. The reason he flipped on the Royal Commission is because athletes came out against him and he did not want to be disliked by athletes. That's my view of it, okay? And so the question is, can someone come out on this that makes him feel as disliked and as that? I don't know. I give it a 10% chance. 10%. And so you want to fight and die on 10%.
No, I also want to fight at the election. Like, let him take this to an election people who love this election, love this policy, are rusted on
who are you going to vote for in the
Labour.
election? When you want to fight it in the election, who are you going to vote? No, I don't even mean you.
No,
who are you counting on to win the election against Labor?
Well, the hope is not Labor.
Exists.
Well, the coalition will be One Nation and Liberal Party by the looks of it.
Okay, so your hope. So my view was, I think they're going to pass this. Let's not make it completely disastrous. Let's give them an easy change they can agree to that is politically palatable, that will shave off the sharpest of the edges. And I wrote, I don't know if you read the whole article. Presumably you did.
I was too much in fury that I ripped up the paper and left.
We should keep opposing the whole thing because the whole thing's terrible. But if we're only going to get one thing, this is the thing to
I think we should be reducing CGT is the point. Like it should be 15% max, like every other country.
All right.
Basically.
Well, what's your chances of getting that with this government?
Not with this government,
Zero.
but I think we vote out this government is the point.
Well, now we come back to this point. What's your dream? Your dream is, I'm going to go and fight on the battlefield in the hope that one nation becomes the next leader of Australia. Is that your pitch? I don't feel like that's a good pitch.
The problem is, like, you accept 30% and you're kind of given something incrementally. People aren't that bothered by it, and Labor wins the next election with this deceitful, fraudulent policy.
So I don't think this. So this is what I think is going to happen as a result of these changes if they go through. Australia has 1.1% GDP growth at the moment. It's going backwards in real terms. It's going to go backwards further. Inflation is 5%. There's increased spending. I'm not sure it will stay at 5%, but it ain't going to 3%, is my guess. Unemployment's just gone up. Property prices are going to go down. And and rent is going to go up. And so what I suspect is going to happen in 2 years' time at election time is there'll be a massive cost of living crisis with people not finding places to rent and possibly a recession. What do you give the odds of recession in 2 years?
Well, we're due a recession anyway.
So 30% plus chance
they'll
of
quickly
recession.
drop into
Interest rates are not going up anymore.
The question is what happens with inflation, because inflation's crazy high. Even forgetting Iran, it was above 3%.
But you have to say, in fairness, a chunk of inflation is not the fault of this government. It is due to geopolitical problems.
Forget who you blame.
No, you say forget who you blame now because you can't blame them. But what I'm saying is...
I do blame them, but I'm just not partaking in that discussion.
The Iran war is not them.
It was 3.3 underlying.
Correct.
Before the war.
Correct.
It's now like 6%. Forget
it's
that.
5%.
Yeah, well, whatever it is. That's before it's really come through.
Before this stuff comes through.
3.3 was 5% headline was pre-war. War's about to just make it even higher.
All right.
And then 3.3 excludes the fuel costs and all that kind of stuff. So RBA, which was jawboned by the government, Jim Chalmers jawboned the ABA to drop rates 3 times. So it's 100% it's Jim Chalmers' fault, the economic dunce. So, we know whose fault it is. And you also blame Frydenberg and Morrison for their ridiculous spending during COVID. So they're not
right. Leave the past
blameless.
in the past. Let's move forward.
But you just said who you blame. I'm telling you who's blame.
I'm not sure the last 2 prime ministers we have of this country are in the top quintile of just overall intelligence of Australians, right? That's one of the challenges.
Morrison's more cunning, I think. I think Elba
wasn't a great prime ministership, as
he's a
you've
shocking
said
prime,
many
he's
times.
a shocking prime minister,
Yeah,
but
it wasn't.
Dan Andrews is super cunning as well. He was a very so this political success and intelligence are completely uncorrelated.
So I think this government is going to get, if they get rolled at the next election, it won't be because people are angry about these tax changes, because I go to cafes and talk to people in the cafes about what they think. And do you know what most people think? I don't think it's going to make things any better for me. It sounds like it's hurting rich people a bit, and they move on. So I think most people don't care.
It doesn't. The people it impacts are massively impacted, and they also. If you look at the people it impacts, it's young founders mostly, and they're the ones who are creating jobs for other young people.
They're a minority of young people. So what I mean is,
but these are people who are all left Liberal Party, who are naturally at home in Liberal Party and vote. And I put myself in this category. Our viewers, I can't vote for Scott Morrison, robo debt guy. I can't vote for Peter Dutton, the anti-immigration guy. Labor are much better on social policy, and I can kind of trust them economically to not do anything really stupid.
I see what you mean.
And I think there's literally millions of people who did this, and now we're completely double-crossed and defrauded and lied to. I never would have voted for a government that was going to increase capital gains.
Do you know the number one political issue for the electorate, especially, it's all about 25 to 35. Do you know the number one issue?
Housing.
It's all cost of living.
Yeah.
It's all about cost of living. And so I think
this doesn't make it better for them.
I
agree
agree with you, but my only point is this. I don't think these specific tax changes are going to make any difference in the votes of 25 to 35, but I do think cost of living in a recession will make a difference. And so I think we're on track for that
will.
as a consequence of this. And then the question is, who do you vote for? That's a whole other conversation. But the reason that I came out and tried to do something is, and I don't want to go into too much detail on this, but the behind the scenes conversation on this, because, there are people on the Labor right that don't have much power at the moment, but they're very opposed to this.
Yeah. The Miles's and even Charlton.
And it goes deeper than that, right? Yeah, absolutely. And so they want simple...
Wasn't Chalmers on the right? I think he is, technically. Well, he used to be till his communist policy just released.
Doesn't he have to be because of the way the Labor Party does their factional stuff? I actually don't know. But what I do know is they look for changes that are simple and will make things less bad. And so that was the motivation. I think you should keep fighting. I'm right behind you. Most of the stuff I write is just completely against a terrible system. Answer this question for me. So negative gearing, when the government says they've done everything for housing and we say they've done nothing, what we mean is they haven't increased supply, they haven't made it cheaper to build with
they haven't made the
lots
hard
of red tape,
decisions.
they haven't reduced the debt that the government that banks can give for buying property, which pushes up prices. But negative gearing, you would say, has a distortionary effect on price, right? You've said that forever.
Yep. I don't like negative gearing. Don't get me wrong.
And so one of the distortionary effects it has is that when you sell a house, traditionally you got a 50% discount on the gain.
Yeah.
But when you use negative gearing to offset your tax, you get 100% benefit of the loss. And that's a mismatch. That's a numerical mismatch, because if that loss was quarantined inside the gain, you really only get the benefit of half of it, but you get the benefit of all of it on your tax. No one talks about that. And so and so I like evolution, not revolution, because revolution, there's blood in the streets, okay? And you don't know where the revolution is going to go. And so I don't understand why this wasn't the policy. For the next 5 years, we're reducing the percentage of the loss you can claim from 100% by 10% a year until it gets down to 50%, and it's going to be on all properties, all properties. No one is going to get grandfathered, and that will genuinely provide a gradual release of the bubble in property. And it's actually much fairer not to grow. Why is that not the plan?
Because they're too stupid.
Well, do you think that it's an intelligence issue?
Absolutely, it's an intelligence issue.
Matt, you might be. I just don't know the answer. That's why I want to get. That's why I want to get Charlton on the podcast.
He can't be honest though. He can completely agree with us, but he can't go against cabinet's view.
We can say, why didn't you do this?
The most frustrating thing is if you're going to tackle intergenerational inequality, do it properly. Here's your chance.
I agree.
Put some tax on the primary residence, not 50%. Put a little bit of tax on the primary residence. Get rid of negative gearing completely, not the grandfather garbage they're doing, and actually make it fair so older people don't have these. And get rid of the super thing. There's so many things they could have done that actually would have been brave, harsh moves that maybe you or I may not have liked, as in terms of personally, but were the right thing to do. This is the wrong thing to do, and it targets the wrong people. It targets the young, not the old.
The last thing I want to say about why I think we're going to end up in a recession potentially, from what I've been told by the smartest economist I think I've met in Australia, 15% of this country's turnover, economic activity, in some way connects to property transactions, if you add it all up. People that have a primary residence, they hold for 15 years. People that have an investment property hold for about half. The majority of turnover is coming from
investments.
Residential investments being turned over. No one is turning those over now. In fact, I think the opposite will happen, depending on what the actual legislation looks like. At the moment, it looks like there's a loophole where you can turn your primary residence into an investment property and claim negative gearing on it.
Yeah.
And so I think the lack of turnover, if you want to go and short stuff now, go short every real estate agent, every mortgage broker, maybe the banks, although they're very diversified, but they've already been smashed. I think that people underestimate the impact of a reduction in property transactions.
You know who gets smashed more than anything there?
Yeah, go on.
Our bankrupt Victorian government, who's dependent on stamp duty
that's a great
keep the
point.
lights on, which are barely on
That's
as
a
we
great
speak.
point. But you know what's another $10 billion of lost money to a Victorian government. So that's why I wrote that article. I get your point. We should keep fighting the good fight, but I suspect there's a 90% chance that the worst parts of this will not be changed. Again, I just think they could have also said, we're going to change capital gains tax discounts so that you get a 10% discount every year for 5 years until it gets to 50%. We'll encourage people for holding assets for longer. That will take care of everyone. But house flippers are going to pay more. And I mean, there are so many easy solutions. People say, well, it's a complex problem. Doesn't mean it's got a complex solution.
Or you could just go 0 or 15% like every other country does. It's not exactly complex.
It's really crazy. Anyway.
On that, we'll go quick.
By the way, I said I was going to have to wear Kevlar with ceramic plates to this thing. But you were very gentle on me. I thought that was very nice.
Thank you, Will, for sitting in. We can't wait to have you turn this into Australia's best media company. We're excited. Adir's excited.
Thanks both.
Absolutely.
And we've got a special guest in the studio. He's actually come in for a deep dive, which you'll hear on Saturday. But I thought, well, come in and speak to us about some meaty business stuff. So we've got Scott from Terran Capital with us. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Scott.
And we'll talk about GYG, one of Adir's favourite businesses to talk about. So we had a big announcement.
I like the food at GYG. You like the food?
I'm not a massive Mexican guy. I quite like GYG.
Well, I got good news for you. It's not Mexican.
What is it?
Well, it's
Tex-Mex.
It's Tex-Mex-ish.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually very nice.
It's good. Yeah, you did a good job.
Debatable.
You like it?
It used to be good.
Oh, you think it's changed?
Yeah, it used
I'm
to be
shocked
fantastic.
to hear that.
Really?
It used to be the best burrito going around.
Really?
And now it's all rice.
Isn't it?
90% rice.
What was used to be in there?
That's interesting.
I used
It's
to be able
like
to get a
meat or whatever.
barramundi burrito with
Really?
like all the like beautiful amount of beans, massive amount of
interesting.
flavor, coriander,
They got rid of it all.
salsa, and now I get a 80% stodgy rice.
That could explain why the franchises make so much EBITDA because they're saving
full
money
of
on
rice.
ingredients.
I am friends with some Mexicans, and they find it very culturally outrageous that GYG calls themselves Mexican.
Yeah.
I think it's quite nice.
So co-founder Stephen Marks pulled the pin on its ill-fated and very costly 6-year expansion to the US just months after claiming the business was on the cusp of breakthrough in the world's biggest fast food market. Investors love the move, sending shares rocketing 26% in days, with the Mexican giant's market cap back above $2 billion. While it remains below its $43 per share peak, it has almost returned to its $22 IPO price. RBC Capital Markets analyst Michael Toner said the US business had very low prospects of being successful and was not expected to break even until 2037 if it continued to operate. Barrenjoey analyst Tom Kirath said the US exit would allow management to refocus on the core Australian businesses. Very few investors saw the US becoming successful, and we think the US losses precluded some investors from investing, Kirath said. The strong Australian performance and growth outlook now become the key focus. So GYG said expected EBITDA was going to be $85 million for the 2026 calendar year, up 29%. Adir, Scott, views on this?
I think it's good. This is the logical thing. It was pretty obvious to me they were going to shut it. They took a bigger charge than I thought. I thought it'd be a $15 million charge for shutting this. It was like 50 mil or something like that. I can't remember the number. It was a big number. I would say something very positive about Stephen Marks, who I don't know. I think he's a New Yorker or something.
Originally.
Yeah. You know what? CEOs often fall in love with their own ideas, and then the more that people disagree with their ideas and say they're wrong, the more enamored they become because they want to prove that they're right, and like that's the contrarian nature of founders. I think it was very impressive the way he did this. Like, number one, he accepted the reality. I heard some people inside the business say to me, he should have accepted it earlier. Okay, I don't really buy that argument. Like, he accepted the reality.
Yeah.
That's very hard to do.
It's still going and everything as well.
Yeah, he's still
Still
running,
operating,
and he's
make
basically
mistakes.
just accepted the reality, and then he's been very honest about it. He's done this mea culpa that said we've made lots of mistakes. This is one of the mistakes. I'm shutting it down. It's hurting our business. I really think like founders can look at the way he's handled this for some lessons.
Yep.
In when there's high return, there's high risk.
Yeah,
Some of the
I
risks don't
totally
work.
agree.
I think it's
Yeah.
really good.
I
It's
think
really good.
You don't want to be trying something and then as soon as something doesn't go right, you back out, because you need to give these asymmetric bets a real chance of
Exactly.
succeeding. So I think he gave it a real shot, which is great. He copped the personal fallback,
Yeah.
and then eventually became so obvious he should have had to pull out. And we talked about it literally a month ago. And I think I said that valuation's being impeded by this US stuff, and that shouldn't be why you do stuff, by the way, because the short-term vicissitudes of the market shouldn't be determining your business strategy. But I think he gave it a real shot.
No, I think it played out exactly the way you said that, what
Yeah.
was going on. I think that we've been largely right about GYG, and I want Scott's opinion on this, but the last line I'll say is it went up, it was IPO'd, it doubled, it went down, halved, it this, it that, now it's back to IPO. It just reinforces my point about investing, which is founder-led businesses in particular. Form a view about whether you think the founder's great and the business has got great potential. And if you do, buy it and come back in like 10 years and see how it's done. And so if you would do that, you wouldn't have worried about any of these ups and downs and ins and outs.
The rational $43,
Yeah.
which was never right either. Like we saw it when TDM sold Float at 22. Remember, so TDM were long-term holders, long-term believers in this business. We'll get Ed on at some point to talk about it, but they were long-term believers in this business, and they obviously held a view that $22 IPO price must have been somewhat of a full price. They sold down some, not all of their stake. When it went to 43, it was crazy. 2022 has always felt to be a bearish price for this business at this point. It's really 85 EBITDA is really sort of a bit irrelevant because of the whole leasing issue. But this is a great business with great powers. So if you look, and well run with a fantastic founder, a great board, great brand, very good scale. Didn't have any of that in the US, by the way. So it had no powers in the US, which is why it kind of made sense.
I
to
agree.
sort of
And
back out.
I think on the branding one, just driving, despite my misgivings about the change in
The
food
rice.
ratio.
About the rice quantity ratio,
My
exactly.
daughter is the number one fan, and wherever we go, whenever we see a GYG, we're
loves
stopping to get some burritos. We were there on Friday night. So I think
How old is she?
she's 11.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went after netball, grabbed a burrito afterwards, and some nachos.
It's still
and that
way
kind of thing.
healthier than McDonald's.
It's a
or
fantastic
Big Mac,
option.
so-
I still eat it regularly. I just maybe if they're listening, maybe they can, now that they're not investing so much in the US, maybe they can bring back the barramundi and change the ratio a little bit.
Just say to the person serving you, can you put less rice in it
you-
and more
can
meat?
you-
They'll do it. Like people don't ask enough questions like that.
Scott's secret menu, is that the...
It's actually
There's no camera measuring the ratio of. Just ask them.
You make a great point, and I think about cafes. I'm not a big cafe goer, as you can imagine, but like smart cafes almost always give big helpings. And because the food cost is what, a third of the cost. If your food cost goes from 33 to 36%, but you're giving a 30% bigger helping, think of that as a brand investment. So think I go to a cafe, I come out full, not half full. This is such a better way to retain a customer. Think about lifetime value, and so I think GYG making the fact that you've noticed the rice and obviously go there less, that's exactly what they shouldn't be doing, actually. And I'm just really surprised because I know Stephen is really a big believer in food quality and customer
Well, he'll
experience.
listen to this. I reckon that you might have had an influence on his decision making on the ratios.
Well, just
It's a very
putting
un-GYG
myself,
move.
putting myself in the shoes. You know, you're making this big investment in the US, and you're thinking about EBITDA. You're thinking about all that kind of thing. You are going to look, even if you've got that high focus on brand and quality of food, you're going to inevitably shift things a little bit to try and keep things right while you're public.
Have you found this at multiple different GYGs or
Yes.
just one? Okay,
Yeah,
so it's not like just one bad
It's
franchise.
Like I
interesting
said,
'cause-
my daughter's probably one of their number one fans, so I've sampled a lot of GYGs all up and down the coast of Australia.
Fair enough.
They don't have gross margin problems. Like I'm surprised that
That's
they're feeling
fantastic,
the
yeah.
need to mess around with it like that. I feel like they've got so much growth opportunity in Australia. Like they got hardly any
Massive.
stores
Yeah.
here
There's
relative.
200 stores out of 1,000
Yeah, compared to the big players. I will say, like, I just want to reiterate this. Like, there's a Wilson Asset Management Fund, which is a founders fund. It's got some founder money. It invests in founder businesses. Like, I really like that idea without commenting specifically on that fund.
L1's business has been built on that, essentially. They
Yeah.
look for Alpha and they found it in founders.
Absolutely. And I think it still seems to me the best way that you make a return over 10 years, the best return, is just back founders that you believe in and that you believe have got a great opportunity and stick with them. And like GYG's had a roller coaster. I can say Catapult's had a roller coaster. Doesn't matter if you would have bought the IPO 11 years ago, you're up 20% a year for 11 years. Like, no, what's returning that?
If you bought when Contrarian started, you're up like 70% a year, I reckon.
Probably. But like, and you know, there could have been times, like we did a placement that was it's a much higher price than the current price. Like I want to get back there so they all make money. I think, you know, that's the ambition, right? And like, but fundamentally, like the market goes up and down based on the people that know least about your business when you really think about it. Like often low volume shifts pricing. And so GYG is a great example. If you believe it's a good business, I think it's a good business. Like you just buy it and you come back in 10 years.
If you're an investor though, are you hanging out, like looking at the roller coaster of GYG, are you hanging out a bit longer after IPO when all these growth plans are on the table? I haven't followed GYG too closely, except for on the food front. But are you hanging out? Are you hanging out and waiting for the IPO? There was talk about expansion to the US. That was a big part of the sell. Are you waiting a little bit to get good pricing that bakes in a bit of downside risk? Because you could have mistimed this in a few ways if you got in at the wrong
but
points.
like the thing is this. This is a long paragraph to say, should you try and time the market? That's really the question you're asking, right? But you just want to use up your word count,
I said a lot more than that in that comment.
It's good. It's got this, it's got that, it's going up, it's going down, it's going in, it's going out. Should you try and time it?
Hang on. Should you, in founder-backed, to riff on what you're saying about founder-backed businesses, do you wait a little bit longer after IPO?
I see.
Knowing that you're going to back them? I mean, we were talking about Karma the last time I was on, I think. It's a founder-backed business.
Yeah.
It's down off IPO. If you back the founders, is the right move to wait it a bit?
Well, if you would have backed the founders at IPO of GYG, you would have doubled very quickly, and then you would have thought, "Oh my God, why didn't I buy it at IPO?" So I understand. Maybe a slight variation of that point is, if a business is coming to market and insiders are dumping a ton of it, what should you think about that, if anything? Because I don't know if you remember GYG.
Yep.
They upscaled everything, and like TDM, who was like really the cornerstone investor, TDM were not going to sell it, they were going to sell a bit, and then they sold more. But I don't think that's a reflection of the way, from my conversations with TDM, it's not a reflection of how they feel about the business. They're very big believers in the business.
They might have had Fun Life or something playing into it.
No, they've got indefinite fun.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think
There you
they
go.
basically just thought, well, we've invested in this and we've made a lot of
They
money.
thought it was
we
above
should
the,
take
it was
off
above the intrinsic
table,
value.
you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think it's any more than that.
And so this is how I feel, and maybe karma I'll put in the same basket in most things. Like I think that unless you look at it and there's a very obvious orange, I'm going to say red flag, orange flag. An orange flag could be the founders are selling down tons. That might make me a bit nervous.
But
Or
founders
the-
should be allowed to sell down a little bit, right?
They should, of
Take some money
course.
out.
I think they're
Just to-
crazy if
it's
they're not selling down
tons.
Yeah, I think when I invest in business, it's always secondary. I always give it to the founders because then I think, now you feel a bit safer and we can grow the business harder. So but another sign is what you've just said, which is if I looked at this business and I thought the US is a joke and like it's hurting them, I should just wait till they shut that thing. In the meantime, it's going to drag them down. I just think that is one of a whole lot of factors. I think it would be a big call to wait for that. And I think that if I was a believer in GYG, I would have happily bought their IPO and put it in the drawer for 10 years and ring me in 10 years. And the thing is this, what if you bought GYG, what would it get you? $44, right?
43, yeah.
43. What if you bought it at 43? Well, you would have lost half your money. And then like the mathematicians amongst us would say, now it has to double to get back to where you started. And I would say, but if you really believe in this business, you think it might 5x plus off the IPO price, maybe more. And so, don't engage with the ups and downs. Form a view, have a thesis, invest in it. And unless something changes with the thesis, like the founders leave or they do crazy, they go into water parks or something, I don't know, like something totally different, right? Like I think that you should just form a thesis on the business and the founder.
At $43, there was no margin of safety. That was a crazy valuation. That was a $4 billion plus
I
valuation.
agree. So I wouldn't have bought in at that
Made no,
price,
for a business
right?
that makes like no impact.
And
So
we said that. We said it's
what
too
I love
expensive.
about GYG, the most important thing for a franchise business is the franchisees making money.
Yeah.
And that's the absolute indicator. We know with Domino's, all the franchises lose money and it dropped 90% or whatever it dropped.
Subway hard to make money.
Well, no, Subway you make okay money. But
like-
Macca's is obviously McDonald's been the best performing fast food business ever, and their franchises made the most money. And GYG is more profitable for franchisees than McDonald's in many cases. So I've always been
agree.
huge bull based on that and that alone. Because as long as your franchise is making money, you've got plenty of TAM. You can just pop up new stores because there's more people. So if you're making $3 million, $2.5 million as a GYG franchisee, that's unbelievable.
And if your franchisees are making money, they shouldn't have to do things like rice stuffing your burritos.
Which
I'm glad you brought that up and not me. I didn't
The whole
want to be-
rice
Yeah,
thing just
it's-
makes it. I just don't get that. It's so out of brand for GYG. I'm sure Stephen will hear this.
But the
fix it.
the best per store revenue is a non-franchise business.
Yeah, well,
Chick-fil-A.
I was about to say
Nice.
Chick-fil-A is number one.
Yeah, and there's a non-franchise stores, company-owned stores.
And only open 6 days a week, as you famously pointed
so
out.
I mean, look, there was a lot of noise about this GYG IPO because there was Baron Joey involved in it. Once they got
It's a
involved,
retail business.
and exactly, and then there was all the we can do drive-through better than anyone
We
knows
can.
how to do drive-through.
Yeah.
We can do, we got this US. There was a lot of noise. Fundamentally, they're a business that has nice margins with a very big TAM in Australia and a big opportunity to expand. And if they can execute well, it's going to go well. Do I think it should be valued differently to other similarly growing quick service businesses? Probably not. But I do think that there's a big opportunity with this business in Australia.
If you wind it back, do you go telling the big stories about doing better drive-through,
I
or
think
do you
they
play the
believed it.
middle?
Yeah, I think they believed it.
Yep.
Let's move on. Final story before we jump off. And I'm not sure if you noticed this last week, guys, but Australia's woke brigade were out in full force last week, lining up to take shots at accounting firm EY after the giant announced it will make employees pay back 2 months of their 6-month parental leave if they resign within a year of that paid benefit.
So say that at a human comprehension speed. So 6 months, they got 6 months parental leave.
Yep.
And they have to pay back 2 months if they leave
Within a year.
Within a year.
Yep.
Okay.
EY has 8,000 staff in Australia and offers parental leave well above the statutory minimum. Despite what appeared to be a fairly sensible move to stop people taking advantage of a very generous benefit, it was of course slammed by pretty much every special interest group you can imagine. Carol Schwartz, the daughter of billionaire Mark Beeson, claimed a clawback provision on parental leave sends exactly the opposite signal. It treats paid leave not as a genuine commitment to supporting working parents, but as a conditional loan, one that comes due the moment an employee decides to no longer work for them. Schwartz bizarrely claimed that the fact staff are walking out the door within a year of returning from the parental leave tells you something is broken in the culture, the flexibility, the leadership, or all three.
Or alternatively, they were going to leave anyway, but just
Exactly.
hang around to collect their parental leave.
Or stay before they had the baby to get the parental leave, which is what lot of smart people would do. I would do it the same. Georgie Dent, head of parenting group The Parental, said EY's changes were a significant step backwards for working women, and the clawback provision fell disproportionately on women at the most financially vulnerable stage of family life.
Well, also the 6 months falls disproportionately on women as well.
Absolutely. Dent said parents may have a legitimate reason to leave in the year of returning, including a child with additional needs, a partner's job change, or workplace that isn't working for them. Gents.
One of the interesting things about this topic is, if we bring it back to productivity a bit, is just thinking about, I think Australia does a lot of great things for employees and how we think about employees as a society. Then we've got to be careful when it comes to productivity, how far we push the lines on things on employers, because then they become more reluctant
to hire in the first place.
Employ and hire in the first place.
To hire child-bearing age women, for example, is an issue.
That's the second order effect for sure of having a really generous.
This is what and I worry about that a lot in these things where things can be very well intended, but then have unintended.
I'm not even sure this is well intended.
Side.
I'm not sure the original generous parental leave is well intended. Do you have your views?
What do you think? Well, I'll tell you a funny thing. I play this game with my kids where we find funny signs. And we have to say, what happened for them to need this sign?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty funny, right? Because there's no sign without some disaster that preceded it, right? And there are some crazy signs, like don't feed the crocodiles, for example. And so...
It's also funny for anybody crocodile, but yeah.
Yeah, right. And so basically the question is, what happened that they needed to implement this policy? Like, it didn't come out of nowhere.
For sure.
And obviously this was some kind of problem. Now, I happen to think it's a bit of dumb policy, but on the flip side, I think 6 months...
clawback? Or
yeah, I think the
original?
clawback's dumb because, like, the amount of... My guess is...
We have a clawback, by the way, 100%. I've only used it once, I think.
But do you ever see how much parental...
We have a return to work bonus because I actually like supporting working women. I don't give people a payment not to work, a payment to work.
Yeah.
So you come back to work, we'll give you a bonus.
Yeah. And so I think because you're a much smaller business than EY,
Sure.
they're kind of...
they're king woke. They're
a bureaucracy, right?
Absolutely.
In some ways, not them particularly, but
All
these
of them.
kind of
Yeah, all
big
four of them.
organisations, right? And so they have to do more general things. And so I think the 6 month parental leave is generous, and I think it's smart because it is like if they've got high quality employees, women, they want to keep them. Like it's hard to hang on to them. I just wonder how much money they're going to save on the clawback and what message they're trying to send.
I think it sends a great message.
What's the message?
For a start, let's go back to the original paternity leave issue. And I've talked about this on the pod before.
What's the law on this? I'm not even across the
This is
law
not
on this.
none of this is compulsory. The government has
not compulsory.
The government has a scheme, and you can add to it. And these guys add to it essentially. So the government has
I think
gives you 2 months. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And you can choose that. We give obviously a bonus. People come back, but you don't have to. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do. It's up to the business.
Yeah.
My point is, most businesses, actually all businesses, have an amount they can pay for staff.
Yeah.
And I can pay. We got 3 people who work for Contrarians. You're going to get $50. You're going to get $50, and you're going to get $50. If I then say, actually, no, Adir, you want to take on paternity leave, I'm going to have to give you another $20. That means me and Will only get $35 each because I've given you an extra $20 and I've only got $150 in the pot. It's got to be split somehow. You're now getting more and you're not working.
And you have to hire
someone. I've got to hire somebody else to cover you. And that's not going to be, and I'm going to tell them, sorry, Adir's back. I'm going to have to fire you. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that...
But for EY, that's less of an issue than for you or for us
I think
on
it
the podcast.
still plays out at a big scale because you've got to get someone to replace the...
You do, but like these are... I'm very nervous making this comment because I think you might put me in Marxist jail for this.
You're already there, mate. That's right.
Yeah, because he's already against me. But they are big and profitable organisations, and this represents a pretty small percentage of their profitability.
But instead of giving a small percentage to people on maternity leave, what about the poor parents who can't have kids because they just can't have kids for health reasons? They have to get a pay cut, so this person who's had the fortune of having a kid can get a pay rise.
I'm not sure.
That's essentially what's happening.
I'm not sure.
What about the gay couple who can't have kids? Why are we giving them less money? This is the most discriminatory policy in favour of people with kids against people without kids.
I'm not sure that free market economics lets you give people pay
Adam's
cuts.
the anti-woke, I've decided.
Yeah, like he's a unique blend of everything. He's like every flavour of ice cream that blends together to just, I don't know, create grey. But you're not grey. You're like the brightest thing.
Championing equality whilst,
Well, yeah. I think, but hang on, there's a free market.
It's real equality.
No, I don't think it's fair. Don't say that. Like, basically, it's not true.
You're part of the whole woke
if you try to drop
infrastructure.
If you try to drop someone's salary to pay for someone
No,
else.
but you won't give a pay rise. It's the same thing.
But it's a free market economy. They'll go somewhere else. Like that is how a free market economy works.
But we're talking the margins here. Are you going to leave a job for $1,000 or $2,000 a year? Probably not. Or maybe I can give everybody here free lunches, and because I'm not giving everybody maternity leave. What's fairer? Everybody getting a free lunch every day,
I'm gonna try
or 10% of people getting this massive large yes? What about males who aren't even the carer getting parental leave? These guys give
I want to flip
13
this.
weeks
I
male leave.
want to jiu-jitsu you and see if I can get you worked up at someone else. Okay, ready for this move? The people you're taking money from, they are the partners of these big consulting firms that get trust distributions and don't even pay payroll tax on their trust distributions and then funnel it out. That's who you're taking a bit of profit from to pay for people. So maybe you should
it's the other employees who get, the partner's probably getting the same amount. It's the other employees who are getting stitched up here.
And so if
it's
you...
the poor gay parents, it's the single parents,
Well,
it's the people who don't what about people who don't marry at all? You see it on Tinder lately, it's a hellhole out there.
We've gone... What are we talking about again? We've gone a long way from...
You know, I'm not sure you're aware of this, but same-sex couples are having kids.
Yeah, they are.
Like, we've passed that line a long time ago.
It's super expensive and hard.
I know.
Like, it's
well,
not...
you should ask a different... I'm going to reframe your question in a more socially acceptable light. What should you not... If you're going to be paying 6 months of maternity leave, why are you not paying for people's IVF that can't have
100%.
kids?
That's much more justified.
I know what your buttons are. There you go.
100% is more justified. But going back to the original point, and Carol Schwartz...
You happy you came to this podcast?
Yes.
If you look
I
at
think.
Carol Schwartz's comments saying if people are walking out within a year, something's broken, that may be the case, but much more likely is someone's gone, show me the incentive. I can get my 6 months pay. I can get a bigger pay rise at PwC across the road. I'm just going to get paid double. That's what they've done.
Also, after you have a kid, you pretty much everyone reevaluates
exactly
their life choices. And
no fault of these
really
people.
Hard. Like that's probably one reason, but there's probably 20 other reasons.
We had somebody
in.
we've had one person claim this clawback on the baby bonus. So we gave them 2 months baby bonus. And like literally 2 weeks later, they claimed, I'm leaving. So of course we didn't pay the rest of the bonus.
Yeah.
And she had the audacity to start arguing. I said, you've been back 2 weeks. We gave you a bonus because we want our females to come back, or our mums to come back, or dads to come back to work, not to leave after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In defense of it, EY at that big bureaucratic scale that you get to, I think you get 1 or 2 instances like that, and then the machine of HR gets into play, and the lawyers, and they just want to put things up.
I think it's amazingly brave they did it. They stood against this. Look at the woke criticism they got from the Carol Schwartz of this world, who did pretty easy when you inherit $1 billion from your dad. Like, what about people who actually built businesses?
I love the way you just summarise everyone in like 8 words. I'm terrified of what my 8 words are. What about if I said they do have a cultural problem, but the cultural problem might be that people are sticking around in order to take advantage of this bonus
That's
and then
everybody.
leaving? That's also a cultural
Show me the
problem.
incentive, I'll show you the outcome. I don't blame the mums or dads, by the way. You're giving me money to do something. Of course I'm going to take advantage of that.
All right.
They're just fixing that massive incentive misalignment.
We could have a very worked up argument about this.
On that note, we'll go to we'll go full stop.
Is this podcast over?
We're done.
Thank God for that.
We've got
Simple mercies.
we've got Scott back obviously for our deep dive on Saturday, so you don't want to miss the big man for that. We'll be back in 5 days' time with a super exciting deep dive. Thank you, Will, for coming on board to this menagerie. We will.
That is a great summary of this.
We'll see everybody on Saturday.
Thanks, everyone.